You're listening to Rikki and Jimmy on Relationships, the show where we uncover the thoughts and behaviors that are sabotaging your relationship and what you can do about it. Jimmy and I are passionate about sharing the ways that imperfect partners like you and I can shift unhealthy relational dynamics and create closeness. So welcome. Drop your defenses and open your heart, eyes, and ears. Let's learn how to be the best partner we can be together.
Welcome back. We're so excited to be here with you today. We have an interesting episode. I'm actually really excited about this episode, even though I've been out of the dating game for a while, but there's a lot of people that are still in the dating game. And even if you're married, you'll still get some value from this. But essentially what we're talking about today is if you're going through a breakup or maybe a separation, if you're married, how do we know when we should give it another chance? What signs are there, or how do we reevaluate? Should I give this person another chance? Should I give this relationship another chance? What do you think, Rikki?
Well, and that's a time of pretty big doubt for a lot of people. You know, not only are you heartbroken, but you're also doubting, do I trust myself to make a good decision about whether or not to get back together with this person? I miss them so much. What kind of things do I need to weigh and consider in order to make a good decision about this? And we're here for you today, if that's your situation.
We really are. Yeah. And I know that that's such a hard situation, obviously. I mean, there's so much pain on both sides. Even if you were the one that initiated the breakup, I know that was probably still really hard for you in a lot of instances, unless there was some really bad stuff going on where you were like, okay, I know I want to get out of here. But that's kind of not what we're talking about, because then you wouldn't be reevaluating, should I get back with this person? Hopefully not. Hopefully you wouldn't, at least.
Right.
Even though those types of bonds can, we all know that they can be very strong. Just because it was a toxic relationship doesn't mean that there's still not a ton of connection and chemistry and passion in that relationship. So those are really tricky too, because you often feel so bonded to this person. I mean, they even came up with a term, being trauma bonded to somebody. So
yeah, so I wouldn't throw those people out though, Jimmy, because I think we're going to be talking to them today too. I know. I want to say that in my current relationship with my partner, we were pretty messy when we decided to get back together. So it wasn't necessarily, this is a great relationship, but we've got one or two things wrong. We had a lot more than one or two things wrong, but we both wanted to be together. And so we're going to be talking about things today that will make you go, maybe I could make this work with this person, even if it's kind of messy.
Or maybe I shouldn't make things work.
Or maybe I shouldn't. Yes, because that's a very valid option too.
So where should we start? Should we start with someone who did the breaking up or got broken up with, and they're
I think it'll be easier. Yeah, I think it'll be easier to talk to the dumper instead of the dumpee.
Okay, the dumper. So, I have some good advice. I mean, I don't know if it's good advice. I have some advice for the dumper.
You should start, because I am hardly ever that person. I was usually
me
the
too.
dumpy, so
Me
so
too.
if you've got advice.
I was always the dumpy.
Well, we've got things to say to the dumper, don't we?
Okay. Well, here's what we know. If you broke up with somebody, you broke up with them for a reason. Like, let's start at the most basic things. Like, you broke up with
reasons.
them. Oh,
I've got a list of reasons. Do you want some
I would love to be hit with some reasons.
Right. These are good. These are not just good, but like common reasons that people are breaking up with people. So let's hit them. We don't have to dive too deeply into them. Your needs aren't being met. You find yourself regularly seeking your needs from other people. You're afraid to ask for your needs from your partner. Your friends and family are not supportive of your relationship. You were kind of staying out of obligation, or you've been working on your relationship for a really long time and nothing seems to be getting better. I thought that was a wonderful list of really common reasons that people call it quits. And Jimmy and I both have a lot to say, if we want to, on why those happen or what we can do about them. Yeah, did I just derail the episode by throwing a list at you that you didn't know I had?
No,
Okay,
please.
Great.
I love your impromptu lists.
I'm all about the lists.
No, it's so true. I mean, at the end of the day, if you broke up with somebody, this can be a really tough time, because you break up with them and then a couple weeks go by or something, and of course you start to miss them. And of course you start to think, well, maybe was I being too harsh, or was I, should I give them another chance? Of course, that's so natural.
If you cared about them, of course you do.
Of course. Yeah. But you do need to be honest with yourself, and you do need to acknowledge, I broke up with them for a reason. There was a reason. Yeah. Like, what was the reason?
And hey, that reason doesn't necessarily mean the relationship was terrible and it's definitely a good idea that it's over, but the reason deserves acknowledgement.
Yeah. And it might be the reason that this relationship isn't going to work if nothing changes. And you need to acknowledge that, because this can be a really tough time where you start to, we start to hope, and relationships can't be built on hope. There's just not, it's not,
or second guess ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe I don't need that need that I broke up with them for because I miss them so much.
Yes. Oof. Maybe I was too needy, especially because they told me I was too needy, and maybe they were right. There's so much, what's the word that you used in the beginning? Doubt. There's so much doubt here. There's self-doubt. There's doubt of, but of course you want a great relationship. And sometimes we fall into a pattern where, the sunk cost fallacy, as Rikki will go into more about, but it's essentially like, well, maybe I can just make the one I have work. And sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Like, what are the characteristics of a relationship that can work? Or maybe you should realize that, I've put a lot of effort into this, but, there it is right there.
Before we breeze past it, the sunk cost fallacy is when we feel like we've put so much time and effort into somebody that it kind of hurts us to throw all that away. We are like, I've sunk so much time and money and effort, not necessarily money, but that's what the sunk cost fallacy is talking about.
Some people, yeah.
Yeah, right. As some people, that's true, that it would be a shame to give up and lose all the effort but you know what? Sometimes we're going to go over some reasons where it's a very legitimate reason to separate or not be with somebody, that it doesn't matter how much time or effort you put into it. Sometimes it's not the best place for you.
No,
I got dark fast, but
I did. And you know what? I'm here for it. Cause my disclaimer is, like, I've been married for 11 years. I don't know you. I mean, I know you, Rikki, but I don't know you, listener. But I truly care about your relationship. And I know Rikki shares the sentiment. Like, I do feel like care about your relationship. And especially if you're dating, it's a different conversation if you're already married, obviously, but especially if you're dating, like, I'm like your big brother. Like if your partner isn't putting in the work, then I am on them. And I'm like, this is not going to work if they're not putting in the work. And I'm on you too. I'm like, hey, I'm holding you accountable. You need to be putting in the work. But if you're putting in the work and they're not, and you're in this mindset of, well, maybe I can just do, no, it's not. Like, I'm just telling you, having been married for 11 years and seeing other people's marriages just fail left and right. It's not, there's a reason why 40% of first time marriages don't work out. There's a reason. Like, so do not get into the habit of downplaying your legitimate needs, or you know what I'm trying to tell you. So
I think so. This is going to be hopefully a very nuanced episode for everybody. Because I mean, we really cannot stress enough. Every relationship and situation is different. So you're going to be looking for us to give you a certain piece of advice here. Like, some of you are like, oh, I really hope they tell me to stay. Oh, I really hope they tell me to go. And I want you to know that there's really no one size fits all advice for this kind of thing. Everybody's situation is different. Everybody's needs and reasons for splitting up are different. Some are more intense, some are less intense. You really have to exercise a lot of self-trust after listening to this episode too. I guess we'll talk more about how to trust yourself a little more with that decision also.
Sure. That was I guess the only question,
really winding, a vague warning there.
You have to stop second guessing yourself. You're doing a great job.
Okay, thanks.
So I think the last thing I would say to that specific person who's like, I broke up with them, but like, I guess I kind of have this desire to like text them and get back together. I would just ask you like some basic fundamental relationship questions. Like, did you feel safe to be honest with this person? Did you feel like they cared about your needs, wants, desires, dreams? Did they show that they were that they valued those things.
Ooh, can I play devil's advocate here
please.
a little bit too? I think there are a lot of really good people that we are with who don't necessarily know how to do that either. So if you're finally entering back into that conversation with that person, like, look, I really miss you, but in our relationship, I didn't really feel like I was able to bring up the things that I needed to talk about. You may find that they have a really soft heart about that. They're like, holy cow, I didn't even know I was doing that. Or you may find that they're kind of cold-hearted about it. And they're like, well, you needed too much anyway. And I don't think I need to tell you guys which direction you should go for those two responses. But I just want to say, if you didn't feel like you could bring your needs up, when you tell somebody that, you might find that they have a really soft heart about that. And they're like, okay, that's a thing that we can work on. Or you might find that they're kind of emotionally unavailable, closed off, not the kind of person that's able to open up and encourage you to speak up about your needs.
Yeah, I love that. When I think about breakups, what I would want to convey to somebody is that breakups are opportunities. Like, especially if you're getting back together, which so many people do. So many people break up and then get back together. And I'm not demonizing that at all. But you need to view this as an opportunity. I don't know how to do this per se, but you kind of have to take love out of the equation. Like, you shouldn't be getting back together just because you love them.
That's why I like to say love is not enough. That's kind of my anti-feel-good message. You can love somebody a whole bunch and you're not necessarily a good fit for each other. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's why I said earlier that, like, we need to view this break as an opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's wise advice. Mm-hmm.
For both partners. Like, if I was thinking of two people who were planning, like, okay, well, we're going to get back together, then they need to explore what led to this breakup. Because Rikki would agree, we've talked about this in the past, but when you have a breakup, that aspect of the relationship, or like, you need to view that as that's the old relationship. Like, we're not going back to that relationship because clearly it didn't work, right? Like, clearly something wasn't working. So we need to be entering a new relationship, and that requires certain things. It requires us to reflect on what led to the old one not working. So,
I like how you phrase that, Jimmy. I have a friend who she broke up with her guy and then they got back together, and she refers to the way that they were before as the old relationship, as if it's something completely different. And she talks about their togetherness now as the new relationship. And in that way, it helps her delineate between those two scenarios where they were doing these very specific things wrong last time, and this new world where they do things in a different way. So let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it. Because it's extremely important. That's the first thing that you need to see. Like, well, should we get back together, or should I give this relationship another chance? That's the first thing that you need to see is, are they interested in self-reflecting and understanding what went wrong with the last relationship? Because if they're not, I can promise you're going to have the same issues. Yeah.
And are you? Right? That's kind of important too, because there's a lot of people who just want to get back together and they don't want to look at, like, what was my side of that? Because I guarantee, it takes two to tango. I guarantee you were part of that dynamic, whatever was going wrong as well.
And part of the issue is that you don't know how to self-reflect because you don't know what you need. You don't know what you're feeling. You don't really know how to lead. You don't know how to be vulnerable enough to talk about your needs. But that's a point that we need to make, and we can harp on this now or in a minute. But the reason that this is such an opportunity is you're currently broken up, and we're taking love out of the equation right now. We're just looking at this like kind of like
cold and factually.
Yeah. And the way we do that is you need to be able to be honest. And you might have fallen back. Like, let's say you were together. You might have told me, well, Jimmy, I can't be honest with them because they're going to respond, yada, yada, yada. But right now you have nothing to lose. You are not with this person. So there is no relationship yet. You're deciding whether you're going to start a new relationship together. So you have to be honest. And if you don't know how to be honest, that's a different subject, because a lot of us don't know how to talk about our feelings and needs. But this is the time where you have to be brutally honest, not in a mean way, just in a respectful and actually vulnerable way. This is what I need to feel fulfilled in a relationship. This is why the last relationship didn't work. I'm not saying you need to change because we're not together. I'm saying this is what I need.
Yeah, I've got a tip on how people can do that. This is something that I did. Yeah, during my breakups, multiple with my current partner, when we were still trying to figure things out, I would sit down post breakup and I'd bust out my journal and I would write down, I knew that this needed to be done. What happened to destroy that relationship? Where was the breakdown? Maybe there were multiple things, and I'd have my lists and my bullet points. Here are the things that I thought contributed to the breakup. And rather than writing those from like a tearful victim standpoint, which you might be tempted to do in a journal, I put on my robot cap and I wrote down, as if I were a third party observer, what are the things that I did to contribute to this? What are the things that I think my partner did to contribute to this? Just so that I had a very clear idea of the, the aspects that broke us apart. And that was very helpful for me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's a point that we really need to make is accountability. I mean, like, don't start
that is
a new
accountability there. Yeah, right.
You both need to be showing accountability. Like I'm taking accountability from my side of the street.
Yeah. Well, and so, like I said to you, or before the episode started, Jimmy, my partner didn't necessarily have a journal of his own where he was writing this stuff down. But
of course, yeah.
Right. But when we made that phone call, the I miss you phone call, where one person or the other calls up and they can't stand it anymore and they miss that person, I said, I have a list of the things that I think contributed to our downfall. Are you open to going over that list with me? Because I don't want that stuff to happen again. And he said, absolutely. He said, absolutely. Right.
I love that.
And this isn't somebody who I necessarily thought was like very welcoming and open to the things that were wrong, but having a list of, because I said, I don't want to break up for these reasons again. Do you? And he said, absolutely not. Let's look at these and talk about them.
I love that. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's really, really difficult, but you have to be okay if this relationship doesn't work out. Like it's so hard. And you've said that numerous times, but that's the best way to go get into any new relationship is essentially by saying, if this doesn't work out, I know I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. And that's tough to do, especially when you really love that person or you're really uncomfortable being alone. Man, those are tough places to be able to say the sentence, I'm going to be okay if this doesn't work out. But, I don't know, I guess to anybody who's in that state too, I always liked to think back to a version of myself who hadn't met that person yet. And I remembered I was okay then,
Wow.
That was comforting.
That's really good. You know what else is a good exercise for that? If you think back to before you met them and you think about what you actually wanted in a partner.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Because it was different. It was different stuff usually.
Yeah.
No offense to my partner, but
and you might need to be honest with yourself. Like, is this person actually, because love can play a lot of crazy tricks on us where we kind of settle for those things. And don't get me wrong, you will settle with any partner in a sense. You're going to settle
in some
you're
aspects.
Going to, you're going to, like, they're not going to meet every one of your needs. Actually, is this a good time where I can bring in, so I'm trying to read this book, The New Rules of Marriage by Terrence Real. And cool. he has a great quote. He has a great quote when it comes to just kind of like figuring out whether we should stay with someone. Like, listen to this quote.
Cool.
Are enough of my needs being met in this relationship to make grieving those wants and needs that will not be granted worth my while?
That's brilliant.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh my gosh. That's so good. Okay. So we're going to say that again slowly, not word for word for everybody who may have missed that, Jim. It's true. Enough of your needs need to be met during a relationship that the things that you have to settle for and let go of don't feel devastating for you.
Yeah. And if the answer is no, that's
said,
okay.
Terry.
But
right.
Yeah, well said, Terry. There's going to be things where you're like, no, Like I do need the things that they're not giving to me. That's okay.
Yep.
That's perfectly fine.
And that's heartbreaking. My heart goes out. Yeah. I've been in that situation where it's like, I love so much about this person, but there's these one or two things that are really important to me. And if I don't have those things, I don't see those things happening in this relationship, I will be occasionally crying myself to sleep. And that is not a place where I can happily stay in a relationship.
Yeah. So just to reiterate, when we're deciding on getting back with somebody, we are coming at it from a place of kind of just cold, calculated self-reflection. Was this person actually showing up for me? Did this relationship actually fulfill my needs, or was I kind of just
Totally
settling because I don't want to be lonely? Because that's a thing that we can.
Oh yeah, I've done that. I know you have too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think,
but that was a me problem. I needed to own that
same.
as, that's a me problem. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if it might be helpful for me to throw out some actual examples of things that I've settled for. I've mentioned many times on the show before that my partner's not a texter. I am prolifically texty. I love texting. And early on in our relationship, I was really bummed that I wasn't getting sweet texts or even a lot of casual texts from my partner. And that was one of the things that I asked myself, can I feel good about this, about being in a relationship with somebody who's not texting me all the time? Because I love that thing. But when I sat down and made another one of my handy lists in my journal about the things that I loved about my relationship that were good, I realized there were a lot of things that far outweighed the texting thing. He was always willing to listen to me. He was incredibly dependable. The texts that weren't coming instead were replaced by morning and nightly phone calls. He's the most phone callingest man I've ever met in my entire life. And I thought that's pretty great too. We had so much fun together. I mean, this list could go on the entire episode. And I thought, gosh, that thing that seemed so important to me, the texting, really, when compared to all the other wonderful things that I get from this person, small potatoes, you know?
Yeah. That's like a perfect example. Sorry. I hate that. I keep like clearing my throat. I ate some pineapple before this and like, it's just stuck right there.
No, it happens.
Anyways, I'll be okay. I love that you said that. And that's like a perfect encapsulation of like what any relationship, at the end of the day, like we all come into this as individuals and we're just trying to make this work. And it's like what Terry said, like you have to have enough of your needs being met to where you can actually, I love that he used the word grieve. You have to grieve the needs and the wants, because I know you still want text.
True.
You still
Jimmy,
want that.
I grieve the texts. I do. I think about them. Sometimes I have dreams that Chris has texted me something really sweet, and I'm like, "It's happening," and then I wake up and I'm like, "Oh, never mind. I'm in real life."
I love that, and I'm also sad at the same time.
Yeah. Well, it can be sad, but it can also be surrounded by the wonderful things that he does that I totally love. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is kind of all relationships. Like you're not, of course, you're not going to get all your needs, wants, and desires met. Of course, you're not going to, because this person isn't a Disney prince, or a princess.
It's true. Hey, and don't even make me bring up. Yeah, don't even make me bring up the wonderful texters who were really bad in other categories.
Ooh, so interesting. Right? Yeah.
No, I'm not naming any names, but
no, of course. So the last thing that I want to say about. And then we can go off on whatever tangent you want. But if you're getting back together with somebody, I think it's so important that you probably didn't even do this the first time around, which is why it's so important that we do it right now. But you need to reestablish boundaries and agreements. Yeah. And so talk about your boundaries. Talk about the things that you like. Hey, listen, when we were in conflict, the most common boundary that people throw out, that I throw out every time, is like, hey, so like when we would get into conflict, you might not agree with this, but like I perceived what you were doing as yelling at me. You would yell at me, like your voice would get escalated and you would yell at me. And this could apply especially if they say any sort of name calling or something like that.
Yeah.
But what you can say is like, I'm just letting you know that if we were in a relationship, if we pursued this, then like, that's a hard boundary for me. Like, we can have discussions, we can even disagree on stuff, but I won't be yelled at. And if I perceive you as yelling, I'm just letting you know I'm going to leave the room for 30 minutes. I'm not saying that I'm avoiding this conversation and I'm just like stepping out immaturely. I'm telling you now, I won't be yelled at. So if I feel like there's yelling, I will take a 30-minute break, but I will also come back and initiate and say, hey, like, I'm ready to continue this conversation if you would like to, So.
I love it. And for my people pleasers who are terrified right now going, I can't just set a boundary. That's awful. It can help soften the blow if you're to say, hey, so is there anything that happened before that you might want to say? That's a hard pass for me. We're not going to do that in the future. Because I want to know that about your side too. And then that's a spoonful of sugar with the medicine that they're taking.
Yeah.
Hey, you can't yell at me. What's something that I did that you're like, that's not going to happen in the new version of our relationship?
And it might not even be a boundary. It might just be like going back to like anxious and avoidant. Like, maybe if we're talking about a guy in this example, if he was actually honest, he might say, well, yeah, sometimes, like, when I had that guy's trip planned and I went hunting for the weekend, you would text me like nonstop. You knew I was going out of town. Yeah. But yet you're sending me 50 text messages a day. And the more I'm kind of just like trying to spend time with the guys and like, I understand that that's making you more anxious, and that's making you more like kind of just like, what's the word besides anxious? But you're going to just start texting more and more and more to try to get me back into the conversation when I'm out there for the weekend. So
and on your side, you could say, hey, thank you for telling me that. I can work really hard on that. Maybe I can schedule some time with my friends while you're out too, so that I'm not thinking about it so much.
Yeah. This should lead to you doing some sort of where you can both kind of do some self-reflection where he's like, yeah, like, you texted me a lot and it just kind of annoyed me. Like, you knew I was out there with the guys and you're texting me nonstop, and it's your job to go, oh, I can see now. And then you can be honest with him. You know what was happening is I just felt this massive disconnection from you. And it was like, I thought to myself, I would start telling myself, he doesn't even want to be with me, and he would rather be out there with the guys, or maybe sometimes I got scared. Like, what if one of the guys brought their girlfriends, or what if there's other girls there and he didn't tell me? And I would just start to get really scared. And that's a great opportunity for you to actually have a vulnerable conversation. Like, that's what's happening here. Like, I got scared. I would text you a lot. Then you would avoid my texts because you were having fun. And so you would avoid texting me back, and that would scare me even more. And I can start to see now that's a me problem. Like, I was being triggered and I wasn't actually telling you what was going on. And these are supposed to lead to these new conversations where you can actually remember, you have nothing to lose. Be vulnerable, be self-reflective, talk about what actually was going on. If you know, that's the problem. You probably don't know. You need to do some digging and journaling, but you have nothing to lose. Be honest.
This feels like such a wonderful spot to remind everybody that if your conversation where you're trying to get back together with somebody looks like you sitting down and disciplining them about all the ways that they screwed up, that's maybe not the best scenario to get back together with somebody for a couple of reasons.
So true. For
one, if you feel like you're perfection and they're absolutely terrible, it's like, why are you getting back together with that person? But also, you're probably not a perfect, unflawed person as well. So because I do feel like a lot of the messages that get sent to me online are folks who portray themselves as the perfect partner, and the person that they want to get back together with badly is absolutely terrible. And if they would just change, everything would be great. And that's such a recipe for disaster. Also, like, I hope they can see how much contempt they're viewing their partner with, like if you look at somebody as this bumbling mess who can't do a relationship, like you're not going to, I don't know, put your construction hat away. You know what I mean?
I love that you're...
Thank you. It's so frustrating to get those messages. Yeah. The only scenario where you should be sitting down with somebody and trying to get back together with them is where you see that both people have some things to do differently, and both people want to do some things differently, including yourself.
Yeah, I love that. You really do need to evaluate why are you getting back with this person? If you view them as so much contempt, or you view them as just they're just a moron, they're just a incompetent, emotionally unavailable moron.
Where's the love that you might not be getting back together with them because you love them? You know, you might just be like, that's my project that I wanted to fix, and I'm going to determine to make it work. Exactly.
I love that you brought that up. Yeah, that's so very important that we remember that. The other thing I wanted to just and this is kind of goes back to everything, but this goes back to our good friend Dr. Stan Tatkin, and it's on agreements. Like, come to some new agreements. If you're starting a new relationship, the reason that the old one didn't work was, one, because you weren't being honest with each other, whether you didn't know how to be honest or regardless, or you just felt afraid to be honest. All that applies. You weren't being vulnerable with each other. You weren't being honest with each other. You didn't get clear on any boundaries. You didn't feel safe to bring stuff up because neither of you learned how to listen, learn how to listen and validate and empathize. But you also didn't make any agreements on, like, okay, when this happens, how are we going to handle that? How are we going to do this as a team? You got to set a
plan. I like that.
You got to have a plan. I mean, you just can't get through. You have a plan for everything else in your life. You make a grocery list. Why? Because you're going to you forget stuff if you don't. You go to your job. There's a plan. If I went to your job or if you came to my job and I had no plan for success and I wasn't succeeding,
I just show up and wing it.
You'd be like, well, obviously you're not succeeding. You don't have a plan for success.
Yes.
So like, you need a plan for success. If you don't know what the plan is, that's your first step. Figure out what the plan is.
Stop showing up and winging your relationship, right? Have a plan for it. I love it. That's such good advice.
I need to make a longer YouTube video just like that. I'm telling these people, step one is to figure out the plan for your relationship. Yeah. Maybe I need a title on my YouTube video, like,
are you winging it?
Step one for relationship success or something.
Have a plan. Hey, I have a real life example of an agreement that Chris and I put together during the last breakup. Right, where we finally came back together and we were like, this is ridiculous. We need to stop doing this. One of my favorite agreements that we made was no more breaking up. And I know that sounds overly simplistic, but the way we explained it was, we're not even going to use that phrase unless the person who's saying it has decided that they're 100% done and they are not allowed to contact that person again and say, let's get back together. So like, if you're going to even bring up the word breakup or separation or divorce, make sure that that's 100% what you want to do, what you've decided, and that you have no intention of getting back together with that person. And we made that call, and I got to say, Jimmy, it inserted a lot of safety into our relationship that we didn't have before, because we had this like breakup. What's that? Like, if you're parachuting, like the pull cord, like if things got hard, well, I'm just going to break up. That's all. That'll be fine. And then if we want to get back together, we can. Well, we took that pull cord out of there and we said, there's no breaking up unless you're actually officially completely done. And so in that way, when we had issues and problems, our only option was to sit down and talk it out instead of breaking up with each other. So that was helpful.
I love that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to take this in a negative way at all, but if two people are breaking up and then getting back together and breaking up, like, that's clearly a sign of some sort of immaturity. Like
for sure. No, I won't be offended at that. My partner and I were incredibly immature about it. It was like, that was like our get out of jail free card that we would just throw down. The phrase during that final breakup where we ended up getting back together, we said, do you really want to break up with me, or do we just not know how to have conflict? And both of us said, neither one of us want to break up. I want to be with you so bad, but I don't know how to have conflict with you without it blowing up. And so so that was our work then. We said, all right, we need to learn how to fight with each other in a safe way. And that's what we've been working on for years and years and years. And it just gets better every time, I have to say.
I desperately want two people, especially if you're going through a breakup and you're getting back together, a separation and you're getting back, I desperately want them to come to that place where they can both say, we both don't want to break up with each other, or we both want to have, what do we both want? We both want the same goal. Yes. We want to have a mutually fulfilling relationship, but we don't know how. I desperately want both people if I could just get both of you to have at least a moderately the same desire, for let's both figure this out together. That's why relationships succeed, because both people actually have a desire for that.
And you can move mountains even if both people are really bad at it, because we made that decision. And that's not like we magically became good at conflict that day. We were still real bad at it. But knowing that we were two people who really, really wanted to be with each other and really wanted to get better at conflict, that's when things started to get better. We would sit and have those painful conflict conversations until we worked it out. And little by little, they became easier every time.
I love that.
So let's say it's two people who've broken up and one of them decides they want to get back together, but their needs weren't being met. Right. So do we have advice for that person? Obviously, get very clear on your needs. That's where your journal comes out, and you're writing down not a list of 50 things that you want, because that's when you're designing the perfect person, but maybe a list of like 6 core things that you cannot be in a relationship without. I'm just throwing a number out. It's a small number, but it's more than 1 or 2,
the biggest needs are, and these are a little bit broad and harder to define, which we can,
I think that's okay.
Which gets tricky, but it's okay to say, I need to feel respected in my relationship generally.
Right.
It's okay to say, go ahead.
I was going to say, I need to feel like somebody cares when I'm in pain. That's really important 100%. To me, because a lot of past partners didn't. So if I'm looking at somebody and my pain moves them, whether they know what to do or not, they just feel moved by it. That's a must for me.
I love that. I need to know that I can rely on you. If you say you do something, if you're not following through on the things that you say that you're going to do, that breaks trust in a relationship. I need to feel like I can trust my partner.
Yeah. I need somebody who wants to grow the relationship with me. That's a must have for me as well. I don't want to be with somebody who just wants to sit complacently and hope everything goes smoothly. It's got to be somebody who knows work needs to be done and they're willing to do some work.
I need someone that cares about how I feel loved and valued and doesn't just default to however they feel like they want to give me love. That doesn't mean I need you to be my need meeting machine. I just need to see that you care about how I specifically feel loved as an individual, and there's some sort of effort and intentionality towards that.
Absolutely. And that takes work on both partners' parts.
There's so many core needs, and it's great for you to write them out and then just kind of like give examples. And sometimes it gets really tricky to figure out what we need in a relationship, but sometimes it's good to start on what we know doesn't work. Like, think about it. Could I feel fulfilled in a relationship where my partner didn't respect me? No. Okay. No. Could I feel fulfilled in a relationship with someone who doesn't really care how I feel loved and they just give me love however they want to? Hey, I cleaned the gutters. You should feel loved. No, that's not going to lead to fulfillment. So start with lists like that where you're like, well, I know that this wouldn't work. So then what's the opposite of that? Well, I guess I need to know that I can trust my partner. Oh, I guess I need to know that they care about my pain. Or I need us to be able to resolve conflicts in a respectful, of course we're going to make mistakes. It's conflict. Everybody gets triggered, yada, yada. Totally. But I need someone, I'm going to be the person, and I need someone who can take accountability and say, hey, here's where I messed up. I'm sorry about that. You deserve better than that. Here's what I want to do next time. It's okay for you to say, I need that. Because if you don't have that, I can promise you, if you don't have that, and we all know that there's certain partners who never take accountability. They've never said, I'm so sorry, unless they were saying it in the sense of, I'm sorry you took that the wrong way, or I'm sorry that you're making such a big deal about this. But rarely do people actually say, I'm sorry, here's what I'm going to take accountability for on my side of the street on this issue. Doesn't mean apologize for things you didn't do, just means apologize for things you could have done better. And it's okay for you to say, I do need that. Because when you don't have it, I promise you won't feel very loved or valued.
Nope. I'd like to give people permission right now to have some very specific needs. Like I know we're talking about more vague, all-encompassing things, but if you need a partner who's very into mountain biking because that's your thing and you're in,
Right.
I'm being serious here. And your envisionment for a partnership is the person you mountain bike with who you're also desperately in love with. That's okay to want. It's okay to need. If sex is very important to you, it's okay to say, I need to find myself a partner who prioritizes our sexual connection. If you're looking for somebody who's going to be a really wonderful co-parent, it's okay to say, that's one of the things that I need. Not co-parent, that's the wrong word. Somebody who's going to be very invested in taking care of children with you. It's okay to pick out a few of the things on that list that you're like, this is my vision for a relationship that's going to feel good to me. I hate mountain biking, so that wouldn't be on my list. But if you're like, if that's your vision for the best relationship that you could have, it's okay to need that and put that on there.
I love that. Yeah. It's really all about just understanding yourself. Like I want to show up as my most authentic self. And if you know that, well, I need them to, this is why people don't get with people from, I mean, I'm some people do, but other people, they're like, listen, I'm Christian or I'm Jewish and I'm going to marry another Jewish person. Like, that's okay. That's a need.
That's wonderful. Okay. It's okay to have that need. Let me throw out a weird need of mine. I love weird science facts. I love them. Like, it's a favorite. I'm telling you, it's like obscure, like strange. It's a favorite topic of mine. So I need to be with somebody who wants to talk about that stuff sometimes, because I have met people who their eyes glaze over. They're really bored by that. Yeah. But when I'm like, oh my gosh, Chris, I learned something about wombats today that's going to blow your mind. And he's like, oh my gosh, tell me. And that makes me think, that is incredible. And I'm like, okay, that's incredible. Thanks, Jimmy. Jeez, it's not that weird, is it?
Oh, I'm just saying, I'm really glad that he's like,
yes, I am too. And that was like first date kind of stuff that I throw out. I need people to get excited about. I need
you brought out wombats on the first date. You're the only one that's ever, I'm really happy. Yeah. I'm just kidding.
I'm the type of person, I need to be with somebody who's excited about weird, mostly animal stuff. I love animals, but if they don't get excited with me about that, that's not my person. And it's okay that I have a weird, obscure need, because I can't imagine being in a relationship where I say, oh my gosh, I learned something about wombats today. And they're like, you are a weirdo. I'm not in. You know, how much would that hurt?
I would feel so sad. Yeah. And so lonely. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So I love that. I mean, like, this goes for both of you. If you got broken up with, like, I'm not saying that you should. And it's especially hard when you're the one that got broken up with and the other person decides that they don't come crawling back in a sense, but they kind of like come back and they're like, I'm sorry. Like, do you want to get back together? It's really hard for you to not want to, you kind of gravitate towards that person because you're like, you want to be needed. You want, it feels, it's really hard when somebody breaks up with you. There's a lot of rejection there. And I remember what that rejection felt like. And all I wanted was that person to text me and be like, I think I made a mistake. Like, I really do value you.
Right. But in this scenario where Rikki the dumpy has sat down and made her list of things that she needs in a relationship, I can remember, even as they're calling me saying, I kind of want to get back together with you, I can be like, you don't get excited about wombats with me. Right. Like, I don't have to say that. But in my head, I'm like, I know that even though it feels really good that they want to get back together, they don't meet the weird, specific, or very general things that are on my
wombats.
list. I know, and it's so important. You got just so that I can bring this full circle here, everybody. Wombats have square poop. Yeah, so that's a thing that you know now.
Who knew? You did.
I know, I did, and now you guys do. And sometimes they find wombat poop, and it's like stacked up in little Lego piles, and it's so cool.
Who would have known?
Anyway, this is the kind of stuff I bring to dinner parties.
Fun facts with Rikki. She's going to bring in every episode will be a new fun fact with Rikki.
Don't tempt me with a good time. I will do it. I will have a weird animal fact.
I truly believe you. So yeah, even though it's so hard, breakups are terrible. Separations are just awful. I totally get that. But unfortunately, you really have no other choice. Like, you have to view this as an opportunity. You have to view this as an opportunity to explore, self-reflect, understand what happened, get into each other's heads. That's what empathy is. You probably weren't doing empathy right in the first relationship, one or both of you. if you want the new relationship to work, like empathy has to be something that you both decide, I do want to learn how to do that. So.
Yes. Here's my firecracker sentence. When Chris and I finally figured out how to make it work, I said, I want this to feel good for both of us. And both of us had a moment when that came out of my mouth. We were like, did you just say that? Because that sounded like amazing. That's what I want.
This to feel good for both of us is like so good. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was. I was like, we might have to do some hard things for it to feel good for both of us. But that's the goal.
100% have to do some hard things.
Right. We didn't know at that point. Now we've learned. Yes, we do. We do have to do hard things.
And if your partner that you're getting back with doesn't really have a desire or care about you feeling those good things or ability, then like you seriously have to reevaluate. I'm not saying don't get back together, like, but you should at least have some stipulations of like, we have to go see a professional. If you're not willing to go see a professional, like, because I want this to feel good for both of us. And you don't have to say that, you don't have to say this to them, but if you're like, I don't think you care about that, or I don't think you have the capability to, like, you know, people that have gone through trauma and stuff like that, like obviously I don't know their situation, but like, let's say they've been traumatized in the past or they're avoidant attached or whatever. It's not that they don't want a relationship with you. It's that they're not really capable of seeing past their own shame and like stepping out of that turtle shell. So it's okay for you to say, we have to go see a professional if we want a new relationship.
Right. And I want to caution against, we don't want to view avoidance as people who can't see past their things. They don't know how. Yeah. It's like a block that they haven't learned, but they can learn how to. So if your partner is open to learning how to do things differently, that's what counts. If they're like, I'm not open to that, then go ahead and abandon all hope that they're going to, because this stuff takes time and practice. It does. You have to have the bare minimum is somebody willing to do the work to try to get there, you know?
Yeah. And that goes for anxious partners too. I mean, there's plenty of anxious partners that they think they're being vulnerable, but if you actually asked them to speak about their deeper feelings, like their shame and their sadness and their fear, like talk about that with your partner. Like, you know, instead of saying like, they think they're being vulnerable by saying, you never do the dishes because you're such a lazy, selfish narcissist. Right. Like, well, I'm just being honest. I'm telling them what's going on. I'm like, no, you're not actually being vulnerable. Why don't you say, when this happens, I feel lonely, or I feel afraid that you don't value me. They're like, I'm not going to do that. And they'll hide behind, well, I can't do that, because then they're going to respond this, and this. But it gets very tricky that like when we're just giving excuses on why we can't be vulnerable because of them, that's a very dangerous game. So
and that is dangerously venturing into the folks who message me as if they are the perfect partner and the other person is the cause.
I'm
of
doing
all
everything
problems.
right.
Yeah. If they would just shape up, this will go great. Let me keep going down my list here. Your friends and family don't support your relationship. And that's, that's a cause for breakup a lot of times. And that one's a little tricky, because I do think that if absolutely none of your friends and family support your relationship, and this happens, and you're the only one who's like, I want to be with this person, I don't care what all these people who love me say, that can be tough. That can be
huge red flag.
It's kind of a red flag, because the people who love you and care about you, they see how your disposition is. They see how they see parts of you that you don't. And it's worth paying attention to that. On the other hand, you may have been feeding them only the bad parts of your relationship and poisoning the well, so to speak. But in that way, that takes effort on your part to say, all right, I've chosen to be with this person. I'm not going to vent my frustrations about my significant other to my friends and family and keep poisoning that well. I'm going to tell my friends and family, I've chosen this person. These are the reasons. I feel really good about that, and I would like you to support me in that. And wow, this is meandering. It's tough though. Jimmy, because I've been a well poisoner, right? When I first started seeing Chris, all I would do was vent to my family and friends about the things that frustrated me. And they were like, he sounds awful. You shouldn't be with that person, because I was just venting about him all the time.
That's understandable.
But hey, at the same time, my friends and family would hear my vents and they'd be like, this is stuff that you should be addressing in a different way, both of you, and neither of you are. So I do think our friends and family have some wisdom to heed if we can take a moment and listen to them.
Yeah. And especially if they've seen you guys interact,
right.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, like, if you actually trust your friends and they say, listen, like, I saw you interacting with her.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. Like, are you like this? I'm just concerned. Like, all we need to do is make sure that we're not just completely dismissing that as like, oh, you guys just don't understand. You don't understand our love, you know?
Yes, exactly.
They probably do understand, and there are a couple seasons of life ahead of you, and they're like,
possibly. I don't love this. Okay, I'm gonna keep going past that one. Please, let's leave that one in the dust. If you feel like you are staying with them out of obligation,
or loneliness,
or loneliness, that's a really rough one.
That's tough to work through, but you need to be honest with that. Like, do I really want to get back with them, or do I just not want to be lonely?
Yep. Because simply investing more time with somebody is not going to solve the problem, you know?
No, it sure isn't. Was that the last one or no?
It was not. This is the other one. This one's probably going to be a good one to end on because I think we'll have a lot to say about it. If you've been working on your relationship for a really long time and things aren't getting better, what do you have to say about that for somebody? Because that's tough.
First of all, we've talked about this ad nauseum on this episode, but sometimes we think we're doing the work, but we're not really. So, so you need to do some work on figuring out what is the work that I'm supposed to be doing, and then actually being being honest. Like, oh, am I actually checking those boxes, or am I just yelling at them and then calling that vulnerability?
Right.
So, or am I addressing the passive aggressiveness? Am I addressing the silent treatments that we're both kind of giving each other? So yeah, it gets really tricky, obviously, because we think that we're putting in a lot of work on both sides. They probably think they're putting in work too. That's the craziest thing, is you think that you think they're not putting in any work, but if they actually were honest with someone else, they would say, yeah, I'm putting in work in this relationship. So that's where you both need to be actually honest with each other. You don't have to say, I don't think you're putting in work. You can say, you can word it a different way.
Let me throw out something that I feel like could be really clear for somebody. If it's been years and you're saying, I need you to work on this with me, and they're like, okay, whatever. They're like really dismissive about that for years.
Yeah.
Maybe that might be a good sign.
That is a good sign.
It's not a good place for you. How about that? Right?
Yeah. Or if you're able to be vulnerable with them and say, I don't feel fulfilled in this relationship. These are the, like, you don't have to overwhelm them with all of your needs, like just list out all the needs that they don't meet at all. But you can just essentially say, I don't feel, especially if you're coming out of a breakup, like I don't feel, I didn't feel valued in that relationship. And this is what I would need to feel valued. But yeah, and depending on how they respond to that, if they're willing to take any accountability but the problem is that some people will just appease you. They'll just say, "Oh yeah, you're right. I'll do something different," and then they'll never change. And then they'll never change.
You get to be the decision maker there. If they're saying, "Hey, I'll do whatever you want me to," and then they don't, that's when you step into your own power and you decide that lip service isn't working for me anymore, and I'm not going to settle for it.
And maybe this is a good time to I know this is the end of the episode, and I don't know how smart of a decision this is, so it's perfect for the end of the episode. But if you're getting back together with somebody after a tumultuous breakup, maybe it's a great idea to take things slow.
That's amazing advice. That's amazing advice, Jimmy.
And not just slow, but sexually slow as well. Don't just jump right back. Maybe it's smart for you to be like, we're going to go through yes, we're back together, but we're taking this slow. We're not, I know it sounds silly, but
kind of a redo
and maybe a trial period. Yeah. I just got hired on with a big firm and they're going to give me 90 days, but if they can kick me like
a probationary time where if this goes south again.
For both of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. No, that's amazing.
Saying, what's the harm in saying, let's take like sexuality off the table for a specific time period. You can decide whatever that is. And we're just going to focus on like, do we actually want this relationship? Yeah. Maybe we just need it.
Or deciding about us. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Not just working on us, but deciding like, how does this feel?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, that's helpful too, because a lot of people are basing their decision to be with somebody on the fact that there's a lot of sexual chemistry. And that's not what we want to be making. Yeah. You don't want to be making big decisions like who's your life partner based on just how hot things are in the bedroom.
I promise you that the hotness in the bedroom, it won't be what's actually going to decide whether the relationship succeeds or fails.
That doesn't carry the relationship over decades. It does not.
No, it just doesn't. Yeah. It's a great addition if you can both.
It's a great addition.
Hey, I recommend make things hot. Great, but it's not going to be it won't be the sole thing that leads your relationship to fulfillment. I can promise you that.
In the pillars that carry a relationship, that's only one leg. So you need a lot of other legs. It's not even a strong leg. It's kind of sometimes it's kind of weak.
It's the weakest leg. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
I do think I would agree with that. I think it's the weakest leg. It's the leg that fades out the fastest too.
Yes.
With its structural integrity.
Now a stronger leg would be like desire for each other. Well, of course the stronger leg. I'm saying
that's
like to make that
huge leg. Yeah, the trust leg.
Yeah, well, I'm saying like that's the trust leg is a huge leg. Yeah, I'm saying in the realm of the bedroom, having desire for each other is super important. But like how hot the bedroom is, that's not really
right. I see what you're saying. Yeah. I say also intentionality in that department is way more important than how hot it actually is. So.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. Just some intentionality, desire. I mean, like that's what cultivating this climate of like, I care about you and I want to serve you, like from a mutual standpoint, not just one person, unfortunately. I think that's the new hot. When you were dating, things might have been hot for a different reason, but when you're like in an established relationship, things are hot from the standpoint of like mutual sacrifice and service and desire for each other.
Oh, that won't make a very good bumper sticker. The mutual sacrifice is the new sexy is like, I don't know about that. But it is. It's true anyway.
It's true. Yeah. So anyways, I hope that we were somehow helpful to people who are going through this really difficult time in their life and they're trying to reevaluate some pretty big decisions. And
well, these are good tools though. Having the ability to define what we want and to look at both people's contributions to the breakup and to maybe have a trial period when you're getting back together. Those are great tools, way better than just winging it.
I love that. Don't wing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Anyways, we'll see on the next one, but feel free to email us and say, listen, if you email me.
The emails have been wonderful. I've been getting some good ones.
I've been getting good ones, but I won't read it if it's too long. I just don't have time. I'm a stay-at-home dad over summer with 4 kids. Yeah. If you email me something that takes me 10 minutes to read, I'm not going to read it. So if you're like, hey, love the podcast, here's my suggestion for an episode, and it's like a 10-minute thing that I'm just sorry. Like, I'm sorry, I can't. I have 4 kids that are running around pouring things all over the ground. And,
Okay, here's my weird addition to that. I read everything.
I'll forward it to Rikki. So
he'll forward it to me.
Email whatever you want.
I don't necessarily respond. Sometimes those 6-page emails scare me a little bit, but I'm still going to read them.
That's very compassionate.
Yeah, I want to say if you've got 6 or 7 pages to tell a complete stranger about your relationship woes, I would encourage you to see a counselor, whether individually or with your partner. I am not that person. I'm still going to read it because it's endlessly fascinating to me, but I'm not the person who's qualified to help out somebody with 6 or 7 pages of relationship woes.
This is totally unrelated, and I hope that people have just all clicked off. But
they have, yeah.
I think what's happening when they email me 6 pages or 10 pages. I think what they did is they don't normally journal about their feelings and needs. And what they do is they're writing me and they're like, hey, Jimmy, like, love the podcast. Here's some ideas, or here's what's going on in my relationship. I wonder if you could talk about it. And what they essentially do is they're unintentionally journaling and they start talking about their feelings and needs, and it just pours out of them because they don't normally do that. And so that's why it's 10 pages long, is because they're just like essentially they're essentially it's like an impromptu counselor. It's like, this is what I would tell a counselor. So I love that advice. If you write out 10 page to me, take that and go talk to a professional and just read it to them. Like, because that's your heart. That's your heart that you're trying to share with somebody.
That's it. Right. So don't stop yourself from writing those long emails, but just know that we can't, we either don't have the time or we're not qualified to go over 7
It doesn't mean I don't care. I care deeply about what's going on in your life.
Yeah. I've had some serious heartstrings pulled by some of the emails that come to me. But I want to say, lately I've been getting some really fantastic glowing emails from people who are like, wow, this podcast is really helpful. And I'm like, yes, we're doing it, Jimmy. We're helping people.
We're doing it. I just want to be helpful.
Yes. So please, if you've got anything to say about, if there is any little tidbit in the podcast that has helped you out, Jimmy and I want to hear about that all day long.
For sure.
You could put it in the reviews. That helps the podcast grow too. So that's great. Thanks again for all of your support and glowing reviews.
Oh my gosh. And Rikki's new book is coming out.
Oh, that's right. It is. It's out. If you're listening to this episode, it's out. You can go to anxiousheartsguide.com. You guys, I wrote a book for couples. And you can read it if you're the only one of the couple who's working on things as well.
Yes.
What it is, it's just called Anxious and Avoidant, Healing the Dynamic. And the whole book is just about anxious and avoidant dynamics, where they come from, what you can do about it. Like, my favorite part is being able to read into your partner's perspective, because they're not going to be able to tell you, I'm acting avoidant because of this, 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 and this. But my book can say that, and it helps give you understanding and empathy. So then you're not taking everything personally. It's just, I'm very excited about it. It turned out really great, and I hope you guys love it. anxiousheartsguide.com if you guys want to order a paperback, or the Kindle version is definitely out if you're listening to this. So just search Rikki Cloos, Anxious and Avoidant on Amazon. There we go.
I love that. I can't wait.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you guys in the next one.
See you next time.